I will say about advanced offenders who are inducing symptoms, they do not stop. It is a compulsion. Much like sex offenders, they don't stop. Mom moved out of state. She ended up getting that little boy diagnosed with a rare neurological condition, and that boy's dead. And there is evidence that that boy may have been killed by mom. She got him put in a hospice and cut off his food and water.
Welcome back, guys, to Cases and Cocktails. This is episode 33. I'm here again with my beautiful wife, Janice. How are you?
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Got another amazing guest. This one's virtual as well, right?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's fun when they're virtual, right? Because they're not here and they don't have to like look at us and see how crazy we are and that sort of stuff. It's kind of nice.
Well, I think Mike's been hanging out with us for a little bit. He
knows.
It doesn't take long to recognize it.
So that's right. Today, guys, we have Mike Weber with us today. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
We're super glad to have you on today. Mike, you've got a book, The Mother Next Door. Is that right?
That's correct. The Mother Next Door, Medicine, Deception, and Munchausen by Proxy.
And I'm excited to talk about this. We were talking earlier. We try to do these in about 30 minutes, and there's so much to talk about here. There's no way we're going to get through all of it. But we'll work on it. We'll try to get through it. I did tell you as well, Mike, that this is Cases of Cocktails, and because of that, I have to drink a cocktail. It's required by the contract or something. I don't know what it is.
Our podcast producer's a stickler.
So I'm going to drink for you today, if that's all right, Mike, since you're virtual. Is that cool?
That is perfectly okay.
All right, fantastic. And today, Jay, we're doing what?
Fernanda made us a Lime Green Tea Highball. It's gin, lime, and green tea.
Gin, lime, and green tea. Mike, do you like gin?
I do not. That's why I just.
I don't either, Mike.
She's gonna run out of drinks she likes. This is 33. So.
All right, there you go.
Cheers.
She basically says there's only so many ways to make tequila.
That's right.
I drank some of my coffee with you guys.
That's fair. I'll be honest with you, Mike.
Not bad.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
That's not bad. Doesn't have a lot of gin taste to it, so it's good. That's really what I'm looking for in any gin drink is that it doesn't taste like gin. That's probably not appropriate. I'm going to probably get a letter from the gin people saying that that's bad.
I think it's cute that they think they're gin people.
That's fair. I mean, I'm a big supporter of tequila. All right. I got to ask a question, Mike. Your book is basically different retelling stories of individuals that you've had to deal with. And it is, some of the stuff in there is hard to, it's hard to even believe.
Yeah, I agree. And we deal with this kind of stuff regularly, and there's just so much at every turn. And there's so much information and so much stuff that just sounds made up, Mike.
And truth is stranger than fiction, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And it's like, you're reading along, and, you know, in one instance, and I think I don't remember which one it is, you're talking about, you're trying to figure out how an individual has gotten their child into a coma. Is that right? Did I get that wrong?
That was the third case. The child was actually never in a coma.
Okay.
She just had told everyone her child
was in a coma because you called the doctor, right? You called the doctor. You were kind of like, you know,
and the doctor's like, yeah, this kid was never in a coma.
Unbelievable.
And that person was telling everyone that the child had been in a coma for 4 days. You know, these offenders, the story always varies as to who they are telling it to.
Right.
Mike, tell us a little bit about your background and how you gained the knowledge of all these stories, how you played a role.
Yeah, I had retired from Arlington Police Department after 24 years. I went to work at a local DA's office as an investigator. One of these cases came in that had some jurisdictional issues. The local police department didn't want anything to do with it. It did have jurisdictional issues. They asked me to look at it. I investigated it terribly because there was no template for this. I talked to Dr. Mark Feldman. I talked to my child abuse pediatrician, Jamie Kaufman, and an attorney that had prosecuted a couple of these cases in Houston named Michael Trent. And they kind of gave me the lay of the land, said, look, no, this is abuse. This is not just someone that's crazy. They know what they're doing. They know what's wrong when they're doing it. And from that point, we investigated it terribly. Everything, the surgeries, which can be the actual injury element in a criminal charge, happened out of state. We shipped it out of state. They didn't do anything with it. And I went to my chief attorney and said, hey, Alana, if you get any more of these, why don't you just give them to me? They're a lot. I mean, they're a ton of work. It's a 6-month investigation. A lot of times you got to go through all the medical records. She's like, Mike, that's fine. I've been here 8 years. It's the first one we've ever had. I'm like, well, that's fine. They're a lot of work. So good. And then we got Hope Ybarra, the first story in the book.
Yeah.
We got her a month later. And from 09 to 15, I investigated 16 cases of this abuse, filed 6 criminal charges. 16 reports of this abuse, filed 6 criminal charges. All reports are not criminal offenses, right?
Right.
And in 2015, we elected a new DA who, very frankly, did not want to take these cases on because they were hard and she may lose. Her attorneys may lose. So I was stopped from working these cases. Why I was stopped is detailed in the 3rd story of that book.
Yeah.
Thankfully, one of those first cases I worked, a family member adopted that child, a distant family member, and that distant family member is Sheriff Bill Wayburn. And at the time, he was a local police chief when he adopted her, and I worked that case. And when he won sheriff, we knew of 2 cases that were sitting on police department's desk. No one was doing anything on. People would still call me because I had done these cases. And so he brought me over to the sheriff's office to continue doing it. And from 2019 to 2025, March 2019 to January, just now 2025, when I retired, I filed cases on 13 more offenders. This happens far more frequently than people realize.
Insane. Wow. So can you break down, Munchausen? Can you kind of give me what you're looking for and kind of what I don't want to say definition because there's not a probably a global definition there, but kind of what you're looking for.
Well, I can give you my definition for it, and I think I'm on the Munchausen Proxy Committee for the American Professional Society on the Abuse of Children, and I think everyone would agree with this. What this behavior is when a caregiver intentionally, very key word, exaggerates, falsifies, or induces an illness in their child. And what I look for in any case, evidence. And these are anyone on that committee who have a lot more letters behind their name than I do. They will tell you this is an evidence-based diagnosis, right? Yeah. You can't send these offenders to a standard psych evaluation or standard talk therapy and then say, well, they don't have this. Right. I've seen that from psychologists and counselors in reports to family court. You cannot do that.
Yeah.
It's not the way it works. That's like sending a pedophile to talk therapy and saying they're not a pedophile.
Right.
These offenders are highly manipulative and they're highly dishonest. I've had 3 of them tell me they were either pathological or just pathological liars.
Right.
And that's the truest thing I've ever gotten from one of these offenders. So it's much like any other criminal investigation. They present in a criminal interview, in a police interview setting, no different than any other offender they'll first lie. Then when you hit them with some alternative information, they'll change their story, right? And then you may get admissions or you may not, just depending on the offender and depending on the evidence you have. And that's every sexual abuse interview I've ever done, every abusive head trauma interview I've ever done. They really present no differently. And that's how you also know that they know what they're doing is wrong because they lie to cover their tracks.
Right, right. Tell me, so when I appreciate that you said you did it wrong the first time. I appreciate that. Yeah. I really do because it's
I had no idea what I was doing.
Now that you've got it refined, that evidence, obviously medical records, right, are huge. That goes into it. What other types of pieces of evidence are you looking for?
And this is why police involvement in these cases is so important, by the way, which almost never happens in these cases. A big chunk of this is social media.
Okay.
The first thing that should happen in these investigations with CPS is they should contact law enforcement before they ever contact the offender, and law enforcement should find and preserve all social media. I'll tell you why, because there's actually a website out there, and I won't name the website, but it tells mothers, or I say mothers because 95.6% of these offenders are mothers. But it tells them the first thing you do when you are contacted by CPS is you delete all social media posts about the health of your child. And that is, in the state of Texas, that is tampering with or fabricating physical evidence.
Really? The website says to do that.
Yes. I'll tell you off air what that website is.
That's fair.
I'm not going to put it out there
That's
for offenders to research.
No, that's fair. That is, that's fantastic. That's just bananas to me.
You know, and then, you know, those can lead to probable cause for cell phones, computing devices, which are just gold information. The second story, Brittany Phillips, we charged that pretty much that entire case based on her internet search history.
Wow. Can you? So I want to ask a quick question because I think it's important because I can almost already see the comments in under this post is going to. You know, at some point, you've got parents who are really concerned about their kids and their kids' health, right? They're worried little Johnny or little Susie's got the flu or has COVID or has strep and that sort of stuff. And we see this all the time in our line of work, right? You know, kids get sick. And a lot of times we see this happen and it comes up for us in a space of saying, okay, little Johnny or little Susie's supposed to go with the other parent.
And now all of a sudden,
little Johnny or Susie is sick or has asthma or whatever. It's some, you know, whatever, and can't go. But that's not Munchausen by proxy.
That's not.
Right. And so tell me where that line is, because we're going to get comments and they're going to be like, well, it's not this, but it's that, or, you know, that sort of stuff. So kind of walk us through
the DSM definition, they've actually, this abuse, they finally applied a diagnosis to the offender only in 2013, only in the DSM-5. And they label this as factitious disorder imposed on another. Mm-hmm. And for it to be, and this is on the psych side, it deals completely with motive. On the psych side, for it to be factitious disorder imposed on another, the primary motivation has to be intrinsic. Mm-hmm. So attention, love, something intrinsic, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not doing it. If it's external, that's what we call malingering by proxy, right? They're doing it to get custody. They're doing it to get money. They're doing it for other reasons. Mm-hmm. And in those things, they may just be, you know, if they're not hurting their child, that's bad parenting. Right. You know, that's something that family court needs to handle, not law enforcement, if they're not making their child sick. Yeah. The problem becomes when they start to, you know, make their child sick. And for me, you know, I don't care if it's malingering by proxy. I don't care if it's factitious disorder imposed on another. You know, that goes to motive. I care about the motive, right? But I don't. It's if they're doing it and hurting their child, that's still a criminal violation.
Still a criminal violation. Yeah. You talked a little bit about, you know, CPS, and CPS should call law enforcement immediately. And I want to talk about CPS. I want to talk about family courts, but I'll start with CPS. What are some of the things that you see that CPS does wrong?
Well, and I'm going to be very clear here. I want to differentiate between CPS administration, CPS attorneys, and CPS investigators.
Fair.
All right. They're very different. I've given Arizona's policies on this abuse to the CPS administration on four different occasions. They have done nothing. Wow. They have no policies on this abuse. They provide no training to their investigators on this abuse. So even when a report of this comes in, they have no box to check. So a lot of times it'll come in as a medical neglect case. They will, intake may screen it out because they don't know what it is.
Because it doesn't fit the box. There's not a box.
There's not a box to put it in.
Of medical neglect, right? I mean, obviously you're harming the child, but you're not neglecting the child's medical needs. Right. You're creating medical needs.
Right.
But when you don't have a box, it gets put in the wrong one. It should go in physical abuse.
Yeah.
But it'll often go in medical neglect. And then you have a 26-year-old CPS investigator who has no training on this. Her agency has provided her no skills to investigate this case. And it's not that investigator's fault that they don't provide her that. That is the administration's fault. They have been warned multiple times that this is needed. She goes out. She sees a mom taking her kid. She's got a medical neglect claim. She sees a mom taking her kid to the doctor all the time. What do you think she's going to do? She's going to close her case.
Close the case like that.
May not even notify police.
Right.
Right. And I've had cases of this that have been reported 3 or 4 times to CPS before they ever get to me.
Yeah.
And where the abuse could have been stopped, and criminal cases that I filed where the abuse could have been stopped far, far quicker if they had policies and trainings in place, and they just don't.
Why do you think they don't?
I think CPS, like every big government organization, is a reactive thing. And, they're getting just killed by the state legislature right now.
Yeah.
And here's another problem in family court with this abuse. The last 2 articles in the Juvenile and Family Court Journal on this abuse were in 1990. Things have drastically changed. It's much more easier to commit now with the internet. It's much more easier to get the attention satisfaction through social media. We've asked to write an article for that journal. People on the committee have asked to write an article. They've closed their eyes, covered their ears, and going, nah. We've asked to present there, and it's hard, right? So human nature takes over. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to address it because it's just hard.
Yeah. Right.
Most family court hearings are what? 1-2 hours?
Easy. Yeah. If that.
You think a judge is going to take 3 weeks to hear evidence on this in family court?
Well, and that's
You're right. They're not.
And I want to come back to that. I want to come back to that because I think it's really important. I think it's very important. But I want to stick real quick just with CPS. First of all, you said sometimes CPS gets called 2 or 3 times, and quite frankly, I'm going to freely admit to you. My first inclination would be to have my client call CPS as well in order to sort of create that investigation and get that going. But it seems like that's not the appropriate thing to do. Mike, what would be the best thing for someone to do if they're facing this?
Well, what I always suggest, especially for mandated reporters, is if you're going to report this, you report to both CPS and police and hope that one of them understands it.
Okay.
That's my best advice. I say all the time in this abuse, we are, from an understanding perspective, we are about where we were in the 1960s on sexual abuse and in the 1990s on human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And the thing about this, and I've had cases like this, family court does the wrong thing, returns a child to an abuser.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen to the criminal case when that happens?
Out the door. Doesn't matter.
Out the door.
Yeah.
Right.
Say a judge already heard it. A judge decided there wasn't a concern, so obviously there's nothing there.
Right.
Well, and that's also the easy play for a prosecutor, right? Mm-hmm. Even if they have good evidence.
Right.
Now they have a reason they can just get something that's work intensive off their 60 case caseload.
Right.
A lot of human nature involved in this.
Yeah.
And then these offenders who are attention seeking, right? Then they can run to the media and claim they were falsely accused, or more terrifyingly, they can run to their state representatives or their state senators and say they were falsely accused. And they can sit in their offices. They will sit in their offices and confront. I had a state rep tell me I was putting women in jail illegally in Tarrant County last session. I asked her who, and she couldn't give me a name. It was just propaganda. But that is what you end up facing. It's kind of like thank God I'm stubborn, because it's kind of like beating your head against a wall.
Well, and I want to get to this space because that's the first step. A lot of times the first step for us, when we have clients, first step for us is to say, okay, let's get them to someone that's going to investigate this, right? As on the legal side, there's only so much we can do. We can ask for medical records and we can do stuff and we can put it all together. But it starts to look and smell like we're just trying to create something, right? When we're not, we're trying to investigate something is what we're trying to do. And so we try to get you or get the client into a better investigative, space, right? Someone that can do this. So we go to, I guess, if they contact CPS, they contact law enforcement, they start to do this, that investigation happens. I would imagine that most of the time, and I think you kind of spoke on this a minute ago when you talk about having the individual in the interview room, I assume they're sort of hesitant to even participate in the investigation, right?
I don't know if they like attention. Maybe that's something that they enjoy.
And it's so investigated. It's such particular to the individual investigation and the individual you're investigating, right?
Yeah.
If I get a report from a children's hospital and they suspect it and the child is inpatient at the time, when I was at the sheriff's office, at the DA's office, I was very clear with my child abuse pediatricians. We don't cross lines. I am the investigator, right? And that's something family court needs to understand. Child abuse attorneys are not investigating criminal cases. They provide a diagnosis. It is my job to either prove, disprove, whatever on the criminal case, right? And we have very clear lines drawn. But I have started really the last 4 years. If a child is inpatient at Cook Children's, I will respond because that offender may have evidence in her purse. She may have evidence stuffed under the couch in the hospital room. I don't know that it's ever been legally tested, but I would assume that you have no expectation of privacy in the room itself. I can look under cushions. I can't look in your purse without a warrant, but I can look under cushions. But, the Jessica Jones case that we just got a 60-year verdict on, she had Benadryl in it. She was poisoning her child. She admitted to 4 to 6 of Benadryl, which that's probably a minimization, in a 4-year-old at a time, adult strength, to make her child shake to simulate symptoms of a seizure disorder. And, I got admissions from her and I found Benadryl in her purse. And then Benadryl was in her blood when she had given the history of not giving the child any Benadryl. So very strong case. Unfortunately, our DA's office, she had bond conditions and no contact. She violated those conditions. I arrested her for that violation, yelled at them to do something to keep her in jail. This was after she pled guilty and was out awaiting a sentencing hearing. They didn't do anything. She bonded out $200. By the way, she got a new boyfriend that had 3 kids and was giving his kids medication.
Oh, my God.
She bonds out. She goes online, gets another boyfriend. A month before her sentencing hearing, she meets this guy. She cons her way into his house. He has a 12-year-old who has no mother in her life. She comes very close with the 12-year-old, medicates her. And that 12-year-old testified that at the sentencing hearing that she felt dizzy when Jessica would medicate her, but not when Dad would. Told Dad that she's getting her kids back in August after standard summer visitation, and she wants to take his daughter with her and her daughter out of state to a softball tournament. She ain't seen her kids in over 2 years, right? She has no access to them. And then jokingly says, if anything ever happens to your dad, I'll just kidnap you. And she wanted to leave August 1st. Her sentencing hearing was August 9th. Thankfully, I had arrested her twice already. That guy's ex-wife came over and reported something was weird about Jessica. She found the article of first arrest and reported her CPS, and that detective called me. Wow. And we got her arrested again. Yeah. Wow. So,
if not for that, there's no telling where her or that kid would be. Right.
And, I have issues with that DA's office on these cases. They do not take them seriously.
How do you find that family courts, have you been asked to testify in family court, I assume?
I have. Yeah. It's so dependent on the judge. Yeah. We've done some education. I actually did a presentation to the family court bar in Tarrant County. Mm-hmm. And, I did have a family court judge attack me after she walked in the last 5 minutes of the presentation and suddenly got offended. I thought that was pretty funny. I'm like, you haven't been here. I think we got some education done with others in that room.
Yeah.
And there's just a void of education. I'm presenting to the Arizona family court or family court judge conference in, I think, next year.
Okay.
And I've got a couple other trainings lined up with family court bars that I think will be very helpful. I'd love to get in front of anything in Texas, because that has not happened. And guys, family court is lost on this. And they're just lost.
Well, and that to me, one of the things that I immediately, and I look at it from a little bit different lens, but part of that lens is that, I think about what the court is going to say. And if I just having our client call both the police and CPS and then not have something in hand to give the court immediately as hey, I called because of this basis and here's what they found, right? Oftentimes it's, I'll just use a physical abuse thing, right? Client comes to us and say, hey, kiddo says he's being abused or she's being abused or whatever it is. And so, okay, you need to call CPS and get this investigation started. CPS does the investigation, goes and talks to the kid, comes back a week later and says, little Johnny or little Susie says the other parent is physically abusing him or her, right? So you run to court and you say, hey, look, we did the things, right? So here it is. So, if you show up though, you'd be like, hey, we called the cops and we called CPS and we got nothing.
Yeah. Well, and that's very, I warn people all the time on this, like dads who think this is happening, realize there may be repercussions from family court on you for even reporting this, because
100%.
they don't understand it. They don't have a good grasp of it. And I tell everyone, you need to, if anyone makes a claim of this abuse, you need to investigate it until you don't need to investigate it anymore, right? Until you can figure out that it's not true, or you actually, there is something going on on these cases. And, if you want to know how bad family court is on these, and look, I don't mean to beat up on them. It's just a lack of education.
Sure.
You can listen to season 6 of the podcast, Nobody Should Believe Me.
Mm-hmm.
That mom was caught on video putting feces in her child's tracheotomy to cause a blood infection over 50 times and squirting water down the child's tracheotomy to basically suffocate the child or waterboard the child. And she was arrested and given 6 months in jail. And she got out. She had another baby boy. And a family court judge returned all 3 children to her.
Oh, my God.
Knowing all of that. And one thing I will say about advanced offenders who are inducing symptoms, they do not stop. It is a compulsion. Much like sex offenders, they don't stop. And, we're current. I've made calls. Mom moved out of state. She ended up getting that little boy diagnosed with a rare neurological condition, and that boy's dead. And there is evidence that boy may have been killed by mom. She got him put in a hospice and cut off his food and water. And I've been trying to get Birmingham PD to even open an investigation. Nothing is happening.
Yeah.
I highly suggest listening to that full season for every family court personnel to know the gravity of these cases. It's season 6 of the podcast, Nobody Should Believe Me.
That's and you're right. And no one's knocking. We're not knocking the family court system. It's not. You're doing a bad job, and this is they're terrible. We have to be educated. Right. We have to be educated what's going on. Right. It's just like anything else. Right. Whether it's sexual abuse, physical abuse, parental alienation, whatever it is. This is just another piece that needs to be looked at and understood, because when these cases come up, it is going to be it's going to be the ones where it's like, Judge, we need more than an hour today. Right. And there's a reason. It's not just because, right? And it's difficult. I understand there's a tension in family court of, giving enough time and letting people say things that need to be said versus letting people say things because they just want to say things. And
access to the courts by the people that need it.
Right. Yeah. So.
Well, and I will say this, and this is something I realized really just in the past 3 to 4 years, family court is always going to move faster than criminal court. Always. as far as custody is concerned.
Yeah.
And, our CPS attorneys and our criminal prosecutors like, well, you don't need to be testifying about your case, about the case details in family court because, that could affect testimony.
An open investigation. Yeah, we get that all the time.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. You can't put these type of cases in that box because if that kid goes back, you don't have a criminal case.
Right.
So I recommend if you're lucky enough to have a police investigation, to any police out there, you need to go testify in family court about all the facts of your case.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because if not, you're not going to have a criminal case.
Well, it's cart and horse, egg and chicken, right? It's like you and I talked about earlier, or all three of us talked about earlier, is that, if go to family court, and family court judge is like, well, nothing here, mom or dad, you get full custody back, right? And so here it is. Like I said, the prosecutor's going to look around and go, I don't really want to keep banging this drum. You know what I mean? Because they're going to come in and say this other judge gave them the kids back, right? So it sort of puts it, it's almost like if you don't go testify, law enforcement, right? If you don't go testify and we fail, then you're going to fail. Then your job is over, right? As well, right? It's pretty much done.
And that being said, I have also offered to ad litem attorneys and to CPS attorneys, I will come testify. I will testify to everything. And I've had cases where they haven't called me. Jeez. And the child goes back. And again, it's just a lack of training, understanding, and we all have boxes we put things in.
Sure.
If I get a sexual abuse case, I'm going to do this. You can't shove this into a box that it doesn't belong in. And there are very, very different boxes for this type of case.
Well, I think that one of the key things that I heard on here today is that it's not going to stop. This isn't a thing where a parent does it and maybe there's some evidence, maybe there isn't, and you can just believe that they're sorry and it's not going to happen again. It's important, for the education piece for everyone to understand that this is going to happen by this person again, that it's a compulsion that they're not going to stop. And that's why it's different.
If people don't want to believe me because I'm a cop, some people are like that. Go online,
we get that too.
Listen to the podcast. Go online, listen to the podcast. Nobody should believe me. You'll hear it from Dr. Mary Sanders. You'll hear it from Beatrice Shorker. You'll hear it from Dr. Mark Feldman. All of these people have studied this abuse for over 20 years. And on the psychological side, you'll hear it from Dr. Catherine Ayub. They will tell you, Dr. Catherine Ayub has told me she can count on one hand the offenders that she thinks she's been able to treat and get their behavior changed. And all of them were very low-level offenders, right? So exaggerating, or maybe some medication that their child didn't need. Very, very low level, no surgeries, no induction. And so that it's not just me saying it. It is out there. I will tell you, I have had, I've given some trainings, one in particular, where, sometimes people just want to believe what they want to believe, and they're not open to learning. And I caution all the attorneys on here, you have to be open. These offenders are extremely manipulative. They present very well. The one skill that every single one of these offenders I've had, regardless of their education level, they have the ability to read a room. I have sat in the courtroom and watched an offender manipulate a judge.
Wow. Watched
it happen right in front of my eyes and knew that we were going to lose the case.
What do you think? Why do you think that commonality exists? Is it sort of that's the basis of all of this, is to manipulate the humans into, some sort of intrinsic, benefit, I guess? Is that it?
Well, I think the more advanced offenders, and this is my own personal belief, I think they get some kind of intrinsic thrill out of fooling people that they perceive as at a higher station or more intelligent than themselves.
Okay.
That's a personal belief. We'll never be able to know one way or another because these offenders are pathological liars, especially at that level.
They're not just going to tell us.
Right. Well,
yeah. I mean, they're not going to tell you the truth.
Right. Mike, I don't ever really have to worry about that. My station's pretty low in life, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, me too.
I do want to say this. First of all, as with all of these, I think we've got a lot more stuff that we could cover here. I appreciate you coming on and talking about these things. I think it'd be interesting to do some sort of training.
I was going to talk to you about it right after.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. So
I'd personally love to attend one.
Let's give us the what's the podcast again?
It's Nobody Should Believe Me. And, Andrea Dunlop, she is my co-author. She is the owner and she runs that podcast. I contribute to it. First 2 seasons are 2 of the cases in the book. But season 6 is the one really that all family court personnel need to listen to, especially family court judges.
Yeah.
If any of them, if y'all have viewership from them, I just warn you guys, you don't want to end up killing a child by sending them back to their parents. And there's a lot of evidence. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of evidence to show that that's exactly what happened in the case in season 6. And it's split between Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah. The book is The Mother Next Door, and that both Andrea Dunlap and you co-authored that book as well. That's available, I assume, everywhere you can get books, both audio as well as I'm holding a hardback version of it because it's 19,
you can get it in audio any form. It's
that's
available
what
everywhere.
I like. I like to read books
because it's 1995. Amazon sent me this. Anyways, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today. We greatly appreciate it.
And I do want to say I train all professionals, police, CPS. I've done presentations for hospitals on what doctors should do when they get this. Basically, report. Don't investigate it. That's our job.
That's exactly right.
And I do trainings for anything, and I would love to get in front of any family court, a judges conference for sure.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out today. We greatly appreciate it. That is episode 33. We look forward for you hanging out with us in the future as well.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next Friday.